Madalina, and she earned her master's degree in English language and literature in 2014, and here from the University of Almería. And her current areas of research include the contemporary Irish short story and Irish women writing. And she's currently teaching here at the university. And well, we're going to start today with her.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrea, for your introduction.
You're welcome. Aquí, por aquí. Creo que se te ve.
Okay, great.
Ya usa tu cualquiera.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so morning to everyone, those that are from home and those who are here. So as Andrea said, today I'm going to talk about Irish women writers, new and old challenges and the feminist agenda in the Celtic Tiger and post-Celtic Tiger short stories. I'm going to focus on short stories, which are, as a matter of fact, which is my field of study. So basically, this is just a short overview of what was published during basically from the 1994 up to 2021. So the introduction, I'm going to talk about Irish literature as being a more inclusive space nowadays, about the Celtic Tiger and the post-Celtic Tiger context, about Irish women writers and the publication of the stories, what, let's say, means of publishing do we have at this time, and what are the major factors that, propelled the advancement of the short story nowadays. And basically later on, I'm going to focus on the major themes of the short stories written during the Celtic Tiger Island and the post-Celtic Tiger Island. For those of you who are not familiarized with what the Celtic Tiger is, I'm going to introduce the period, and also I'm going to talk about a little bit about what the Celtic Tiger was and which were the main, let's say, changes in relation to what happened, for example, for Irish women in general, and what happened for or what was new in relation to the changes in the publishing system. So first of all, as I said, I'm going to present this period as being one when Irish literature became a more inclusive space. So as we all know, Irish literature in the past was mainly defined until very recently by male voices, such as, for example, Oscar Wilde, James Joyce, Flann O'Brien, or Samuel Beckett. And what's the difference with nowadays? Well, basically, as I said before, and this is just a quotation, the Irish literary field is becoming a more inclusive and wider space. So nowadays, of course, Ireland has always been a country of poets, novelists, dramatists, and short story writers. However, never before has been Irish literature as prolific as in recent years, to the point that already in 2018, the writer Sebastian Barry described contemporary production in the Republic as an unprecedented phenomenon, a golden age in the literary history of the Republic. So a simple internet search or research, or a simple visit to any of the bookshops in Ireland revealed the great truth behind Barry's words, and makes the reader realize how difficult it is to keep track of what has been published recently due to so many titles appearing every single week. For the laureate of art for Irish fiction, Sebastian Barry, this prolific commitment of the Irish authors with literature must be owed to the island's location on the lowest peak of Europe, or maybe its adverse meteorological conditions, the pouring and frequent rain that pushes authors to engage in the storage and solitary activity of writing, which is widely practiced either by well-established reputation authors, such as, for example, John Bownville, Roddy Doyle, and Anne Wright, and also new voices, such as, for example, Colin Barrett, Catriona Lally, Daniel McLaughlin, or Rosie O'Donnell. So basically, the richness of contemporary Irish literature can be observed in the diversity of literary genres written. We have this literature written either in Irish or English, and the diversity of the themes, but also in the identity of the authors. We have nowadays, for example, authors who are travelers, the ethnic minority, or who belong to the ethnic minority of the travelers in Ireland, people who are writing apart from these women. So yes, as I said, we have also a great diversity in relation to the themes. And this is something that has been changing in the last 3 decades. I'm saying this because inclusiveness, as a matter of fact, in Irish literature, India, and also, let's say, the panoramic island, is basically a relatively recent phenomenon if considering the underrepresentation of both women and minorities' voices from the canonical 3 volumes of the field, the anthologies. So volumes basically 1 to 3 were accused of bias, chauvinism, and cliqueness, that it is very exclusiveness, you know. So basically, the other 2 volumes published in 2002 attempted to be, more inclusive and attempted to complement this meta-narratives, which is Irish literary history, with micro-narratives, that is voices that represent women and those women that are less known, but also their contributions are very, very valuable. So as I said before, nowadays Ireland and the literary field are changed, and we have this complete reivindications. And as I said before, I'm going to focus on the Celtic Tiger period, which is this booming expansion of economy that occurred, would start in 1994 and went up until 2008, when the worldwide crisis basically affected other countries, such as, for example, Spain or Italy or Greece, etc., in the immediate post-Celtic Tiger period up to the present day. So just let me spot the next slide. Yes, basically, as I said, in the further slides, we are going to illustrate the ways in which the unspoken, unrepresented past that haunt women's historical presence, and this is a quotation, are materialized in women's writing. So the contemporary wave of Irish women writers of approximately 26 years challenge male's dominant discourses, and his history was searching to establish the balance between genders within the official narrative of the Irish state. The stories here explored place women's back to the official history from which they were cast out, contest stereotypes, satirize social conventions, debunk myths regarding marriage, love, childbearing, for example, successfully articulate political and feminist agenda. For example, the role of women in general is very much contested nowadays, when we have new stereotypes. As a matter of fact, we have this new stereotype of the superwoman, which is nowadays contested, along with other which were already tackled in the past. So this selection of women authors and some of the themes here proposed attempt to answer to questions such as, for example, and this is one of the major purposes today, questions such as, for example, why is Ireland producing so many successful female story writers, such as, for example, Sarah Bowen, Sally Rooney, McBride, for example, Flattery, Cathy Sweeney, almost, well, you know, all of them rang a bell for us. What is new in the contemporary Irish source story written during this period? Is this literature reflecting the changes taking place in Ireland? Is it easier to publish for women writers today? And if so, why? And is literature voicing the feminist agenda and the changes taking place in Irish society? So let's, in order to contextualize a little bit this, well, as I said, I'm going to talk about the Celtic Tiger period and the post-Celtic Tiger period, since this is the context which marks these changes in both for women writers and also for women in general. So history is selective rather than being the rule, not the exception. Irish history is selective too. It would be wrong, nevertheless, to look at Ireland and consider it to be a special case for the way its nation marginalized and created specific rules for women. Ireland followed general trends, although it is true that cultural, national, geographic, religious, economic, and historical factors have conditioned the conceptualization of womanhood and women's position in society towards a globally divergent and more enduring patterns than elsewhere in the Western world. The 20th century broke with it the radicalization of Irish women's petition. Ironically, it is also this very moment when women's images and by extension her sexual identity and the idea of nationhood as being mutually dependent are strengthened. This position and consequent stereotyping was widely and negatively perceived only as an allegory which obliterated the reality of women's lives. That is, such associations were to perpetuate an unreal image of womanhood far removed from the experiences, ideals, and problems of Irish women, as the quotation there says, while reducing them to their biological reproductive functions and to the trope of the angel in the house. So in the Republic of De Valera, basically women in general were, had very restrictive options. Basically, all these pieces of legislation cohorted their rights to, for example, work, to express themselves, and their roles were limited, as I said before, to the private sphere instead of, the public sphere. So that's why we can talk in Ireland about genderization of both the public sphere and the private sphere, since, both women and men had very, very well established gender roles. So with the second wave of feminism occurring in the 1970s in Ireland, or taking root in Ireland in the 1970s, women started to contest, for example, their reproductive rights, employment, divorce, equality in the workplace, and before the law, since, as I said, these pieces of legislation supported women's rights. Justice for abandoned and abused mothers, the banishing of the practices of ostracization of unmarried mothers. We know that Irish culture in general, for being associated with the Catholic Church, they had a very pronounced culture around taboos and around the body and shaming, So basically, they demanded changes in relation to a lot of different aspects, as I said here. Okay, so women's first-hand experiences acted as the germinating soil for pluralism and diversity. In the next decade, which I'm focusing now, which is the Celtic Tiger period, as a matter of fact, women achieved the right to divorce, to abort. They also, get or achieve the right to same-sex marriage. So basically, the Celtic Tiger has provided Irish women with agency, control over her body, and life, and an insatiable sense of freedom. Nonetheless, prosperity and also this freedom infused by the Celtic Tiger is twofolded, since women, as it is said here, became increasingly disempowered and subdued by the ethos of materialism, consumerism, and globalization. Therefore, there was a corresponding rise in language of false feminism in pursuit of late capitalism and neoliberal ideology. What is this in other words? Well, basically, women's freedom to choose and count on possibilities has become a source of further anxiety and frustration. So, as I said before, we have this stereotype of the new superwoman, which is not something very Irish, it's something that affects our society nowadays. It's a very global theme, as a matter of fact. So all these things could be censored, as I said, in the literary field. Well, basically coincided with Isla's economic miracle, the Celtic Tiger, the short story has acknowledged, as I said before, a questioned renaissance. We have a lot of things that are changing in the sense. We have substantial words, which, allow women writers to keep going writing. We have numerous festivals. We have anthologies which are being published now and include women's writers and all minorities' voices. We have bursaries, the creation of associations that all of them, attempt to help and encourage the popularization of women's voices while making women's literary careers economically sustainable. Since we are running very short of time, as I said, here I can share this if anyone of you is interested. As I said, your words, we have a lot of journals and magazines. Banshee, for example, is a new one, and this one publishes, as it is said there, is art and accessible and contemporary writing in all their forms. So there are a lot of magazines which are focused only on women's writing. We have publishing houses such as, for example, Ireland House, Liberties Press, Trump Press. All these publishing houses helped to, make women known and have contributed to the modernization of the image of Irish literature, turning it from something which was quite stagnant and misogynist into something compelling and contemporary and successful. So yes, anthologies, there are a lot of them. The favorite book of best Irish short stories by Anne Enright or edited by Anne Enright, all over the island in various, as you can see from all these titles, they are a mixture of both male and female voices. And also, for example, we have only typical anthologies that focus only on women's voices, such as, for example, Cutting the Night in Two, edited by one of the writers, great voices of Ireland, Evan Conlon, for example. The Long Gaze Back, which is an anthology that focuses only on Irish women writers. The Art of the Glimpse, for example. Okay. So apart from that, theoretical books such as Irish Women Writers Speak Out, which is a collection of interviews, Irish Women Writers, an A to Z guide. Okay, look, it's a woman writer, for example. Also, this is a collection of essays about women writers in Ireland. So there is really a change in the thematic, as I said, since we have this boom and the changes in economy and both society too. Authors such as Evan Conlon, Mary Costello, for example, Emma Donoghue, and Anne Wright, Claire Keegan, Eilish Nilun, all of them wrote during the Celtic Tiger, post-Celtic Tiger Ireland. So all of them talk about, you know, what I set here as womanly concerns. So we have accidental pregnancies, they talk about infidelity, they talk about women's immigration, they talk about lesbianism, they talk about domestic violence, gender inequality, maternity and childbearing, mother-daughter relationships, the difficulties of legal separation, the changes in women's lives, for example, in relation to employment, and for example, also, for example, the difficulties in making possible both our job as mothers and wives, and also our attempts to advance in our careers and further. So basically all these women, as I said before, Nidum, Keegan, and Wright, Donoghue, Costello, Conlon, opened the path for the manifestations of post-Celtic Tiger literature. Claire Louise Bennett, for example, is a good example. Danielle, it's another one. All this collection were published after 2013, which is the immediate end of Celtic Tiger Ireland. Roisin O'Donnell, these are all of them collection of short stories, and there is a continuum between this literature and that literature which was produced in the Celtic Tiger period. We have a lot of focus on the women's body, on feelings, on trauma, on depression, on anxiety, on things such as childbearing. Just because of the titles, they are quite representative. They are, let's say, groundbreakers in matter of, as I said, the themes they deal with. I want to know that I will be okay. As a matter of fact, and paradoxically, for example, the protagonists of this collection of short stories are not okay. So, as I said, all of them talk about these diverse themes. Lucy Sweeney Vine, and here we have a lot of other women's voices who are, as I said, producing literature nowadays. Just to conclude very briefly, historical distance enables women writers to excel in the dramas and that of the ancestors, and to chart the evolution of women's issues over time. By doing so, they become directly involved in these dramas, and also plots by extension, because contemporary Irish women live in the remains of a system that has changed, but not totally, as these short stories demonstrate. So that was all. Sorry if I...
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any questions you may have later?
Yes, the answers we're going to leave for the end of the panel. But